You are now listening to the fastest growing faith-based podcast that empowers, inspires, and motivates your walk with Christ. Ladies, don't you know you are fearfully and wonderfully made? You are far more precious than rubies. You are destiny shakers. Fellas, you are strong, visionaries, and mighty kingdom builders. Together, we are Virtue with Vision, the podcast. We discuss relationships, goals, life, and a whole lot of Jesus. Always remember, you deserve God's best because you are God's best. Let's tune into this week's episode. Welcome to Virtue with Vision, the podcast. I'm your host, Mary Lee Vance, here to remind you that you deserve God's best because you are God's best. Hey guys, wasn't last week such an amazing start to Jesus Fertility? Havy Steen was so amazing, and her community on YouTube were raving about last week's show. But I already know that this week is going to be even better. And I just love how God orchestrates certain people, random strangers in my life that can just talk about a subject matter and I get to connect with. So I suggest if you haven't met a stranger this week, do that. It may just change your life. But have you ever thought about starting a podcast? Enrollment is opening up soon, so you want to make sure that you join my waitlist to get started today. Check out this sponsored content.
Have an idea for a podcast but haven't put it into action? Are you new to podcasting and are overwhelmed with all the information out there? Pods and Excellence is your one-stop shop for all of your podcasting needs. If you're just in the idea stage or struggling to decide what equipment to use to get started, Pods and Excellence is for you. Pods and Excellence is designed to help podcasters cultivate their podcast production, help secure high-profile guests on their show, and how to get in front of the right audience so you can grow exponentially. You need Pods and Excellence if you are struggling with growing your audience, having a hard time monetizing, running out of things to talk about, and just flat out lost with how podcasting works. Then Pods and Excellence is for you. Join Pods and Excellence today and take your podcast to the next level. Go to maryleevance.com to get started today.
Welcome back to Virtue with Vision, the podcast. I'm your host, Mary Lee Vance, here to remind you that you deserve God's best because you are God's best. I have Danielle Smiley with me today. If you can say hi to everybody.
Hey, everybody. How you doing?
Thank you so much for being a part of Virtue with Vision. If you can, let us know who you are, what you do, and what your line of business is.
Sure. So thank you for having me, Mary. My name is Danielle Smiley, and I am an advocate for, supporter of, and friend to moms and mommies to be. I am a nutrition consultant. I've been a public health nutritionist for over 15 years. It was just last year that I jumped out there on faith and quit my job to pursue a dietetic internship, right? To work towards my credentials of being a registered dietitian nutritionist. I'm actually wrapping that up next month. A year went by so fast, so fast.
Yeah, happened in a year.
Oh my gosh. I never thought that I actually would have done it, but my own experience in working with my families and my own pregnancy and birth experience actually is what pushed me to pursue it, because I feel like in the field of registered dietitian, nutrition, dietetics, all of that, Black people are underrepresented.
Very much so.
Very much so. There are, as of this year, of the American registered dietitian nutritionists, only 2.7% of them are Black.
Wow.
Right. And if you're looking at Black men, it's way lower than that.
It's
So
it's probably minuscule when it comes.
it's tiny.
My goodness. Okay, I think this is going to be amazing today. I'm
I think so.
excited. So,
Good.
I want to hop right on in. So, you said that this stemmed from your birthing story. So, if you can, let us know how this developed. What is your birthing story or your pregnancy journey as far as how you're just like, okay, so Danielle needs to worry about these foods that she's eating so she can have a healthy pregnancy, or for those that may want to conceive, how were you able to come into that?
Yeah. So a little background. So
Mhm.
I'm from Miami, Florida. My family is and has always been about health, eating healthy, working out, all of those things. And I've continued that throughout my life. That's kind of what um, pushed me into dietetics in college. I started working as a WIC nutritionist, excuse me, in 2005, and I'm working with these families and seeing a lot of families, a lot of moms come in knowing they were pregnant, like maybe at 12 weeks or so, and realizing that they're coming in with these chronic issues or preventative conditions that could have been addressed prior to, like if you were planning on the pregnancy and not being caught on your heels. It's very common.
Mhm.
So for me, I was scared of pregnancy. Actually, I knew that it's life changing, and so I wanted to make sure that I had all the fun that I wanted to have and rip and
Listen,
run and
turn up.
do
Turn
everything.
up.
Yeah, so I found a partner that I wasn't scared at the thought of conceiving with, and had finally gotten comfortable in my career, and we were like, all right, let's go for it. Well, going for it started at the age of 39. And so
Oh, wow.
by that time, my doctor, my gynecologist was already like for years saying, so what's going on? Like, what are you going to do? Are you interested in kids? And I was really nervous about it. Um, but I think one of the factors that allowed it to happen kind of easily for me is because I was always on top of my health from the beginning. I've always paid attention to it. So I've always paid attention to what I've eaten. I've always been on, never really missed appointments, like preventative care appointments. I was always really nervous about it. So for my pregnancy experience, having it at the age of 39, it was already classified as like a geriatric pregnancy if you're
Mhm.
over 35, or like an advanced maternal age pregnancy. I was scared because of everything that you see all over the news and on social media about being a Black woman, being pregnant, going in for your labor and delivery experience, and things going left because of people maybe not listening to you or
Yep.
not caring about you,
Yes.
or as valuing you as much as they might value somebody else, or not
Mhm.
believing you.
Yep.
So I was really nervous about it. I asked lots of questions throughout the pregnancy. Pregnancy went by very normal, low risk, whatever. I remember going into the doctor's office for a 38-week checkup, and I asked the midwife that I saw, I was like, so what do you guys think? Is everything okay? They were like, oh yeah, the pregnancy went smoothly. We consider you low risk. So I don't think that you have anything to worry about. The way that you would like to labor and give birth, it should be fine. And I always said that I did not want medical intervention unless it was necessary. I'm not against it if it's necessary.
Right.
So the next week I went in, 39-week checkup. Doctor came in, new doctor I haven't seen in a while. And my blood pressure was a little bit elevated because I had rushed from work to get to the appointment. Had
Right.
happened one time before,
Mhm.
and they allowed me to kind of sit down for a second because I ran. And then they did my blood pressure again. It was perfect. Came into him, and he saw my blood pressure elevated. And the first thing that he said was, well, I'm on call tonight anyway, so we could just go ahead and induce you. But did you read my chart where I don't want this to
Yes.
happen?
See,
You
I'm gonna
know?
pause you right there. See,
Yep.
that type
Yeah.
that will immediately send me through the roof. Like, what? Okay.
Oh yeah. Now you feel that way. Imagine how I felt.
I feel your anger. Like, that is a type of irritation when you have someone that you, first of all, you're not connected with, someone that is not necessarily your human, someone that is not necessarily your doctor, and they're saying, oh, this is what we're going to do. You're fine, whatever. We got this. And it's kind of like whatever your needs are isn't a primary concern, even though you're the person that they're seeing.
Right. And I'm not unreasonable. I picked a practice because I know you can't determine when the baby is going to be ready to show up. So I knew that I was going to be seeing different practitioners throughout the pregnancy. It was fine. I saw him one time before. Everything seemed fine until we got to today. So I had a few choice words with him. Luckily, my husband was right there and he was like, he got in and he was calm and he was able to express himself in a way that I couldn't in the moment. And so that was a Thursday. Friday, I went to work like normal, started feeling some pain in my back. I called my mom that night and I was like, Mommy, my back is hurting. She was like, oh, just lay down or whatever. But I think she knew I was going into labor and I didn't know. She was like, just relax, whatever. So the next morning I woke up and I was in a ball. I just felt I could not get comfortable, whatever. I started to pay attention to, I looked at my contraction timer and I was like, oh, wait a minute. This is happening like every 3 minutes, something's going on. So I called the doctor. And lo and behold, who was on call this weekend? But the same doctor.
Oh, yeah, no, I would be like, pineapple, I don't like it. Change it up. I don't want him.
Listen, I was like, listen, calm down. Just, Danielle, calm down. So we went through our process. They told us not to hurry up and come in, just take your time at home. I didn't have a bag pack. I didn't do anything I was supposed to do. About 3:00, we showed up at the hospital. Of course, here he is. I'm rolling my eyes and I'm trying to like maintain my peace, turn on my playlist, bounce on my ball, whatever. Right. And he was, from the beginning, there was this undertone of us just not vibing.
Yeah.
And you can feel certain things in your gut, right?
Oh, yeah.
So so I'm paying attention to it. I'm not, overreacting. Again, I'm very reasonable. I'm very calm and I'm thoughtful and I'm not going to come out of my face any kind of way if I feel like you're here and you're understanding me. But
right.
Husband was there. I was allowing him to kind of, communicate with this dude because I wasn't at him. So the labor went on. He basically, and it could be from the experiences that he had in the past, with mom saying, oh, I don't want an epidural. And then, turning around saying they want an epidural when
at the last
things had gone too far. Right. But I've told you when I came in, when I was triaged, like I told you what it was. So you're watching me and I'm breathing through it. I'm doing everything that I can. And I still know that I don't want it. I don't want it, but he's pushing it on me. He was like, well, if you don't get it right now. And I was like, well, I said, I don't want it. I'm okay. I got it. Like I'm in pain over here because it's not a joke, but I don't want it. So that goes on for hours. I'm able to go labor in the pool. My labor was just taking a while. Baby girl does what she want to do on her own time. It started then, it continued to now. But
she be on her own time.
Yeah, you can't rush her. She does what she does. Anyway, later in the evening, thank God for my nurses, because I think they knew how he operated and they heard me when I was talking to them, letting them know what it was that I wanted for me. If everything is good and she's not struggling and I'm not struggling, then just let it be.
Let it be.
Well, later on that evening, I was preparing to push, like my water hadn't broke. It finally broke and I'm trying to push. It's my first time. I've never done it before. And I'm pushing in a way that I thought that I was supposed to be pushing. And he's getting frustrated with me because I don't know how to push the way that he wants me to push. There was a point during my labor that he said to me, like, it looks like you're having a hard time. If we don't start seeing the baby's head, I'm just going to go ahead and get us ready for a C-section. Now, I chose this practice and this hospital because I knew that they had low cesarean rates. I didn't want that either, you know?
Yeah.
And
No.
he basically threatened me with a C-section. He left the room to go get dressed to prepare to give me a C-section, and I broke down. And the nurses, like one nurse out, oh, an angel, she came over and she sat next to me and she was like, I know you're scared. And I just broke down because it's such a vulnerable place to be in
Absolutely.
when you're trying. I'm tearing up thinking about it now. Like you're trying, and this person is not being supportive, or at least in the
Right.
way that you need that support. These nurses were everything. So they worked with me. I figured out how I was supposed to be pushing. Within an hour, my daughter came, but it was not a joyful experience for me because of not as joyful as it should have been, because I felt like I was over here battling you and not concentrating
On
on
the birth of my child.
yeah, So what happened after that was I had the delivery. He came to check on me, whatever. The pediatrician came, checked on her. 6 weeks later, I had my checkup. And what I encourage my families to do now is to talk about stuff. Like if you don't feel like things went well, of course, if you could do it beforehand, absolutely. In this case, I couldn't. But I kept him in that office with me for my postpartum checkup for an hour. And I gave him the business as respectfully as I could have because
See,
I
you're
needed,
better than me because it wouldn't have been so.
listen, I was emotional about it, but I also needed him to understand where I was coming from. I'm also in the healthcare field. So
Right.
there are things that I know and ways that I'm communicating with you that you don't seem to be
Getting
hearing me. And if you're going to be working with the population that I serve, which is Black women who may not have the resources that I have and may not feel comfortable in speaking up and advocating for themselves, and that's how
right.
you're talking to me, that's a problem.
Facts. Yeah.
It's a problem. So he sat there, he listened, he gave me his viewpoint. When I spoke to um an OB friend of mine, she said, well, maybe he was just being, a little conservative, Danielle, your blood pressure had spiked a couple of times. And I was like, that's okay. But can you converse with me about it? When I had that experience, and once maternity leave was over and I went back to serve my families, it set a fire in me. It was
Mm,
like, you can't just be out here accepting what people give you. You have questions that you come back and you ask me when you're supposed to be asking them that in the doctor. I need you to feel empowered when you go to these appointments. Ask the right questions. If they give you a response that you don't like, clarify it. If they're still being out of the way with you or out of pocket with you, then go somewhere else. You're not stuck anywhere. You don't have to stay and see that provider. You can go somewhere else.
absolutely agree. I had my fertility appointment yesterday, fertility specialist,
Mhm.
and I was pissed. I was
Aw.
absolutely discouraged in that conversation. She immediately jumped from there's steps because my
Right.
thing is I'm a researcher. I'm not someone that's like, oh, I don't know. I want to know things.
Right.
I want to know the processes. No, am I in a healthcare field? Absolutely not. So my knowledge is to an extent. But if you are diagnosing someone with unexplained infertility, right?
Mhm.
And you're telling me, oh, the solution automatically, and you haven't seen me before, you haven't really done my blood work. It's been since like, I want to say August, September. Like you don't really know my body. And this is the first time I'm meeting you as a human,
Yeah.
and you're telling me, oh, this is what we're going to do. We're going to, it seems like it's going to just be artificial insemination. It's going to be IUI. And I'm like, wait, hold on. What about letrozole? What about Clomid? What about these other steps before we even hit that point? And for me, I was like, you're telling me that, and immediately my mind goes on defense because
Right.
you're not giving me the proper steps between that of what we can do. I said, you're suggesting treatment without even giving me the steps before that treatment. I said, for me, it sounds like it's it's money motivated versus help motivated. I said, to me, this is not bedside manner. So I had a complete fit yesterday, and because it becomes frustrating when you come to doctors for help, right? And you expect to have the help that you want or need in order to get to a specific goal. And when they're unable to provide that and provide the care, it kind of gives you this notion of distrust in the healthcare system. So that's why I feel that it's very important. And just like your encounter, where, you had the doctor that, was like, oh, well, this is what we're going to do. Like, you don't know me or
You've seen me once before, sir, for like 15 minutes. What are you talking about? Clearly you didn't read my chart, but okay.
Exactly. We have no conversation. We have no connection. So that's why I feel that it's so super important. Just like you said, it's to ask questions. If they say this is the post treatment, ask why. Ask what steps are before that. Ask them why we're not going through those steps before we get to this. Why are we jumping immediately to something that costs extremely a lot versus something that could be a helpful step to where we're trying to go. So for me, I was able, because I've gone through this, because I'm in the middle of it, and because I know what's going on, I was able to tear that doctor up. Don't play with me.
Sometimes that's necessary,
I'm going to ask questions. And just because you're frustrated with me, that's your job. This is what you're called to do. If you're called to serve me in a way, you cannot get frustrated when I'm asking questions, because I'm knowledgeable to an extent. I'm not saying I know everything. I'm knowledgeable to an extent of a certain subject because I've gone through it.
It's also a very sensitive topic, I would think.
Absolutely.
Like, bedside manner would be on the top of your list because people's hearts are already, it's a very sensitive, and you should be very empathetic to the experience.
Yeah. Very much so. I do agree. But I want to hop in because you said something in regards to when you were going back to serve your families, you made sure that you let them know that they need to advocate for themselves. So we're going to continue that conversation of being able to advocate when we come back from our next break. You are listening to Virtue with Vision, the podcast with me, Mary Lee Vance.
Have an idea for a podcast but haven't put it into action? Are you new to podcasting and are overwhelmed with all the information out there? Pods and Excellence is your one-stop shop for all of your podcasting needs. If you're just in the idea stage or struggling to decide what equipment to use to get started, Pods and Excellence is for you. Pods and Excellence is designed to help podcasters cultivate their podcast production, help secure high-profile guests on their show, and how to get in front of the right audience so you can grow exponentially. You need Pods and Excellence if you are struggling with growing your audience, having a hard time monetizing, running out of things to talk about, and just flat out lost with how podcasting works. Then Pods and Excellence is for you. Join Pods and Excellence today and take your podcast to the next level. Go to maryleevance.com to get started today.
Tired of dating the wrong one? Do you keep asking God, where is my Boaz? Are you ready to marry the man of your dreams? Fleshly Date or Godly Mate is the book for you. It gives you insight on the difference of dating with or without God in the middle. And it prepares you for God's best. Always remember, you deserve God's best because you are God's best. You can purchase Fleshly Date or Godly Mate at maryleevance.com. Are you a business looking for ways to advertise your brand at an affordable rate? Do you want your brand in front of real people and a real audience? Do you need help with what to say and how to promote your message to the world? Whether you have a clothing brand or you're a makeup artist, a top-tier food brand wanting to attract customers to your tasty food, or any product or service, Virtue with Vision would love to partner with you. Virtue with Vision can help you with your script, setting up your commercial, and an ad spot on Virtue with Vision, the podcast. Let us help you take your brand to the next level. Send all inquiries to info@maryleevance.com. Again, that's info@maryleevance.com to get started at an affordable rate today. Virtue with Vision is the fastest growing faith-based podcast that empowers, inspires, and motivates your walk with Christ. Go subscribe to this podcast and go tell a friend. If you need a relatable podcast to listen to while you're going to work or cruising out on the town, Virtue with Vision, the podcast, is for you. We laugh, have fun, grow, and get a little bit more acquainted with God each time. Virtue with Vision, the podcast, is available on all media platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, and Amazon Music. Subscribe today so you can check out all of my past and upcoming episodes. Go subscribe now. And always remember, you deserve God's best because you are God's best. Welcome back to Virtue with Vision, the podcast. I'm your host, Mary Lee Vance, here to remind you that you deserve God's best because you are God's best. I have Danielle Smiley with me today, and in our previous segment, we were talking about her birthing journey and also advocating for yourself. So I want to stay here for a while because I feel like a lot of people, like you said, feel like they can't advocate for themselves, or they really don't know what questions to ask, or they're not knowledgeable in a sense to where they'll be like, okay, well, what's my next step? Or how do we get here? Or what do we do? And I like to be very transparent with my conversation yesterday. She said, okay, well, it does look like you do need to lose a little bit of weight. You need to lose 6% of your body composition or your body weight. But I know that it's hard to do that because, with a hormonal imbalance, it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh,
no, it's okay. And so, when you suggest certain things that aren't really beneficial to your end result, it furthermore takes you away. So how were you able to advocate further for yourself in order to be able to know that you feel heard and you felt heard with the things that you desire or to have?
Well, I think first and foremost, the reason I'll say this first, the reason that I went back to get credentialed as a registered dietitian, I'm not there yet, shortly, but is because I feel like many of the issues that we're dealing with that are associated with health can be improved, at least in some form, through nutrition. Like, nutrition is foundational. Nutrition gets you down to the cellular level. It really does affect you. I think that if you really paid attention to your body and you get back in touch with it, you can see the way that you feel when you eat certain things. Now, that's not to say that if you are enjoying different types of food, that you should swear off a bunch of food because it's not healthy. That's not how I work.
Oh, food. I don't either. I don't believe in that.
Food is so much more than calories. You know what I'm saying? It's so much more than macronutrients or micronutrients. Food connects you. Food is memories. Food is love. Food is delicious. It is my love language. Food is my love language. And so when I look at nutrition I'm looking at the whole person and the impact that it makes. At the same time, I think that it's important to know where you're starting from so that you can strategize a plan forward.
Yeah.
So, when it comes to advocating for yourself, first off, you need to have a provider that gets you, that understands,
Yep.
that is well versed in working with somebody like you and ones that are working towards the goals. You know what I'm saying? That you have.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so that takes research, which you like to do. So, one tool that I like to offer people is called the Earth app. Have you ever heard of it?
I have not. What is the
Okay.
Earth app? Okay. Y'all, the Earth app. Get it.
Yes. So Earth, and Earth is spelled IRTH. It like birth, but without the B. They take the B out for bias. And the reason that I like to point people in the direction of this app is the content is made by families, by moms to be, by mothers, and they get to let you know. It's kind of like Yelp. Like, what was
Mhm.
your experience when you went to this provider? Did you feel respected? Did you feel like they were very informative? What was the result? Like, would you refer somebody else to them?
Do them right.
Right. And I think a lot of times, at least in the families that I've worked with, you continue to go to these same people because you've always gone to these same people, right?
Right.
And you could feel, or you've heard many times where people feel like they're not respected. It's like they're
A
what is it when
number.
you right when you're going through like a
Push them
conveyor
like
belt, like you
yeah.
just push them through. No, no, you're not pushing me through.
Nope.
So I started to um talk to my clients and my patients about this app because I don't want you to feel like you're stuck anywhere. You can get up and leave. There's other providers out here and they'll happily take you. You might want,
Absolutely.
yeah. So don't feel like you're stuck if you're not being received a certain way.
For me, my OBGYN, I love her.
Hmm.
I love her. She a black doctor and I love her.
Yep.
Because when I found her, I said, look, this is what I've done. These are all of the steps. I need to know what the next
Yeah.
step is. I don't want to know. I don't want to have all the hoopla. I've done
Hmm.
my blood work. This is where I did it. Blah, blah, blah. Here's
Yep.
the information. What do we do? And so she was just like, let's take a break here, a step here, because I understand that this is frustrating for you. And I can feel the frustration through your face. So you're automatically
Yep.
coming to me and you're knowing how I feel. You're knowing how on edge I am,
Yeah.
or you're being able to relate. So you want someone that's going to immediately be able to say, I know that this is frustrating.
Yeah.
I know that you haven't gotten your answers. And she even said, even if I don't have the answers, I will go and find them.
Yep.
And that's the type of person that you want to connect to. That's the type of doctor that you want to have on your side, because you know that they understand the difference. They don't understand your body. They understand where you are. They
Yeah.
understand your emotions. They know that it's high. They know that it's fragile.
Yes.
So when I encountered my OB, I was like, oh yeah, I'm staying here. I ain't got to no more longer. Like, I am the Lord to the Lamb. I didn't feel like a number. I didn't feel
Yeah.
like she didn't care. And she was able to make the necessary referrals that I needed.
Hmm.
And that's no secret. I tell people that, me and my husband, we've struggled with,
Yeah.
trying to conceive. And this is something that God has placed on me to share in the midst of, even though I
Yeah.
don't want to,
Yeah.
because a lot of times it is very hard. It's very hard to see other people. It's very hard to be able to, like, oh, Jesus, I trust you, Lord. Like, no, right now
That's
it's
real.
hard.
And I applaud you for being able to share. First and foremost, you're not by yourself. Like, it's
Right.
super common if people talk about it or they don't.
Yeah.
And it must be challenging to walk this walk while seemingly other people are having it easier. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes there either, by the
No.
way.
Yeah.
But it must be difficult. I applaud you. Like, the vulnerability is something that people need to hear. And I don't know if you know the
Yeah.
impact that you're making or how many people you're helping just by using your voice. So kudos to
Oh,
you.
thank you
Yeah, of
so much.
course.
I do want to talk about this food though.
Mm-hmm.
Let's hop back because in the beginning of the year, I was like, you know what, Mary, let's just get on with it. Let's do this thing. I was outside. I was like walking 10,000 steps. I was like, let's do this. Woo, I'm a G. I was having my smoothie. Sometimes, like, I was on it. I wasn't playing. I was cutting the sugar.
Yeah.
Like, and I started to look at a lot of stuff. Like, just take orange juice for an example. So if you have just regulars like Simply Orange or whatever, if you look at the sugar content in 8 ounces of orange juice, it's like 36 grams of sugar. I was like, what in God's green earth are we doing here? So then
Have
I was
you
like,
ever used like the little teaspoons and put them in a bag to illustrate how much sugar is actually in the container of the
yeah,
beverage that you're drinking?
yes, that's a lot.
Yeah. I
That
love
is
to do that to people and watch their eyes get bigger and bigger because it's just so normal for you to pick up the bottle and drink it, or like, oh, well, I got my pancakes, bacon and eggs, I have orange juice with it, like I just drink it. You have no idea.
Zero. So then I started to look at the things of the other orange juice that said 50% less sugar or 1 gram of sugar. And I think there's another one that I saw that said no sugar. So I was like, no sugar, that means that thing probably is nasty.
Not necessarily.
And you're right.
Right.
Because of the one that I have, I believe it is 1 gram and it's literally 50 calories. And I use half of that. So 25 in my smoothie just to give it that little tang. But my thing is it doesn't, after a while, I was like, this tastes like regular orange juice. What was I tripping about?
Yeah. So marketing is a very
Right.
creative weapon.
Yes, it
And I
is.
call it a weapon because it fights against all of our energy to do good. Like, you're trying to do well. You're picking up certain things because this says less sugar, this says no fat, this says low salt. But if you understand like the nutrition label, which a lot of people don't, if you flip it and look at it, the truth lies right there in the fine print. And that's a great place to start when it comes to nutrition education, because there's so much stuff being disguised in the store. And many times we're just rushing in there, picking up something, or even if we're taking the time and let's say we walk down the organic aisle, clearly it's better for you if it's on the organic aisle, right?
Oh, Lord, but that sugar content.
But listen, also, if you're talking about like vegan food, oh, I'm so healthy because I'm eating vegan. Are you?
Oreos are vegan, and
They
that's
are.
horrible.
Like,
it's nothing but a processed. It's processed cookie. It's processed.
it's a lot
it's not
of sugar. Some of my favorite foods. Whole Foods has this ginger snap cookie, which is vegan. And let me tell you something. It's full of sugar and it's so delicious. It's so delicious. And I know that I can't go crazy with it, but people feel like they're making better choices because of the tag on. Yeah. So when we talk nutrition, it's what you hear in public is very generalized information, but nutrition is very individualized because everybody is not the same. We do not have the same blood panels. We do not weigh the same. We don't have the same body composition. And first and foremost, we don't have the same goals. So just because you see somebody on Instagram saying, well, I ate 1,200 calories and I drank this much water and I did this and I did that. Okay, that might work for them, even though you don't know what's happening behind the scenes there.
Right.
Are your goals really the same? Is what that person is doing something that you first want to do? And if you did want to do it, is it something sustainable for your lifestyle? And does it take into considerations any medical diagnoses that you have? Like, you can't just take everything at face value.
You really cannot. And I take what, like when people talk about water a lot, I used to be like, oh my gosh, I need to drink a whole gallon of water a day. If I don't drink a gallon, and it's so not for everybody. Sometimes some other people do need to drink a gallon. And just because if you are up there in weight or you're obese, and that still doesn't mean that you have to drink a gallon of water a day. I at one point I decided to go to a nutritionist, and she was just like, yeah, let's just do 64 ounces, that's half, and you should be fine. I was like, huh? But they don't, because I was like, wait, come on, can you explain to me why? She was just like, sometimes when and she said sometimes as women, if we consume a gallon of water a day, that may do the opposite effect that we want it to do on our actual body. Yes, it may cleanse us out, cleanse our kidneys, but you may have swollen ankles because some of your body is retaining that water that it doesn't need to. And you're sitting here questioning, why are my ankles swollen? It's because you've consumed too much water that your body needs for that day. I was like,
so then maybe there's some other stuff going on that needs to be paid attention to. Maybe there's something up with the way your body processes sodium. Like, it could be anything. Maybe it has something to do with medication that you're taking. It really is no one size fit all for everything. I like what she said about like cutting that in half and starting there. What I like to do and what I recommend to do is kind of assessing what you're doing now. What are you doing now? What's worked for you in the past, right? And then what small steps can we make to improve what you're doing, but in a way that you don't feel overwhelmed? Like, okay, so new year, new me. I know this is a big attack at the beginning of the year, all the time. And so people will be like, oh, I'm gonna eat 5 vegetables a day, and I'm gonna drink 2 gallons of water. And when you dive deeper into these people and what their normal routine is, they might drink a half a bottle, like a 16.9 ounce bottle of water, and get upset with themselves when they're like, I don't have willpower. I said I was going to drink a gallon. Yeah, but you weren't even drinking 2 cups of water. Like, how are you supposed to jump out there and drink 16?
A whole gallon, one from 16.9 ounces.
It's wild, so it's important that you get a baseline and figure out what's going on with you here, and understand also that if it works fast, it's probably not working to get you to the goal. If it's fast, it's probably something that could go away very quickly. You lost 20 pounds in 2 weeks. Guess what? It's coming back.
And then it's going to add 10 more.
It's coming back with fury. And so I'm not one of those people that believes in like pills and potions when it comes to good health. And if we're talking about weight loss, that's never been my focus. It's like slow and steady. What can you do to improve and take steps every day to improve? Go back. How'd you feel about that? Is this something that you feel like you can do? Okay, good. So we're good here. Let's take another step forward. This is about creating a lifestyle that is one that feels good to you, that is sustainable. Yeah. And that takes time. That doesn't happen in a week. And I feel so bad for the people. I love that they're like, I'm getting a fresh start, January 1. This is what we're doing. I just hate that they are marketed to and sold these dreams, and then by the end of January they just feel completely defeated because this one thing that they said was a sure win didn't work out. That's not how this works. So I need people to be honest.
This is good, guys. So when we come back, I want to talk about small things that people can do, generalize, because everybody is different.
Right.
But those that need to take that step need to start something. And when we come back, I just want to see what are 3 things that we can start now in order to get our health back, to take control over our health, so we're not on pills and medication and all of this stuff that don't heal but just help. They cover the bruise, they don't heal it. But you are listening to Virtue with Vision, the podcast with me, Mary Lee Vance. Let's talk it. You gotta rock it too. What am I talking about? Virtue with Vision apparel. That's right, my t-shirt line. We not only know we're anointed, but we rock that anointed drip. We read that we should work like Ruth, have discipline like Esther, and pray like Hannah. Why not wear what you believe? Virtue with Vision apparel line believes that we not only read the word, teach the word, and speak the word, but we wear the word too. Go to www.maryleevance.com today and get your drip today. And always remember, you deserve God's best because you are God's best.
Do you have an idea for a podcast but haven't put it into action? Are you new to podcasting and are overwhelmed with all the information out there? Pods and Excellence is your one-stop shop for all of your podcasting needs. If you're just in the idea stage or struggling to decide what equipment to use to get started, Pods and Excellence is for you. Pods and Excellence is designed to help podcasters cultivate their podcast production, help secure high-profile guests on their show, and how to get in front of the right audience so you can grow exponentially. You need Pods and Excellence if you are struggling with growing your audience, having a hard time monetizing, running out of things to talk about, and just flat out lost with how podcasting works. Then Pods and Excellence is for you. Join Pods and Excellence today and take your podcast to the next level. Go to maryleevance.com to get started today.
Virtue with Vision is the fastest growing faith-based podcast that empowers, inspires, and motivates your walk with Christ. Go subscribe to this podcast and go tell a friend. If you need a relatable podcast to listen to while you're going to work or cruising out on the town, Virtue with Vision, the podcast, is for you. We laugh, have fun, grow, and get a little bit more acquainted with God each time. Virtue with Vision, the podcast, is available on all media platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, and Amazon Music. Subscribe today so you can check out all of my past and upcoming episodes. Go subscribe now. And always remember, you deserve God's best because you are God's best. Welcome back to Virtue with Vision, the podcast. I'm your host, Mary Lee Vance, here to remind you that you deserve God's best because you are God's best. I have Danielle Smiley, who is a nutritionist, okay, because she's about to graduate. She's going to be certified. So I'm super excited. But yes, if you can just break down 3 things that we can do now to invigorate our health, to revive it, if we need to get in shape or if we need to lose weight, drink more water, H2O, how we can do these things.
So I always start with, do you know your numbers? Because most of us don't. When we go to the doctor, number one, we should be going to the doctor for all preventative screenings and, just annual checkups for things that we need to pay attention to. When you go to the doctor, a lot of times they're rushing you through. You go do your lab work prior to, you go in there, they either say, oh, everything is good, whatever, they move on to the next thing. I say, talk about everything that's on that list. If there's something that is within normal levels, it's probably color coded green. If it's yellow, if it's red, that's something that you want to pay attention to.
Right.
So let's say your cholesterol is above 200. It's probably in the yellow or the red, depending on where you were before. I would say at that point, what does that mean? Like, explain that to me. Where do you want me to be? What's realistic? And what can I do to improve my or lower my cholesterol? Does that
Yep.
mean that I need to assess how many times I've been eating out every week? Does it mean that I need to look at my cooking methods? Am I frying foods? What am I doing? Should I be doing more broiling or baking or grilling? um am I eating foods that are high in fat? Different? Am I a big red meat eater? A lot of steak, like that's kind of fatty. Should I cut back on that? Should I be choosing lean protein? Should I be increasing my leafy green vegetables, which
Right.
for most people is always a good thing to do?
We need fiber.
We need fiber. Okay, so that's another question. And when you're talking to a dietitian, one of the things that we love talking about that everybody else kind of cringes a little bit, and we always want to know what your bathroom habits are like.
They do
So,
ask
yeah, we
that.
ask all the time, like, what's going on? Like, what's
Is
normal
it
for you?
daily or once a week?
Yeah,
Because
because
it's so important. Good
it's
health is
important.
very important.
You look at your input and you look at your output. So how often are you urinating? What color is your urine? Does it have a smell to it? You know what I'm saying?
I just said last episode, if your urine is the color yellow like your shirt, you need to drink some water. Okay?
Listen, nobody wants to talk about it though.
Don't.
It's a very private thing because it puts you in a vulnerable position, but it's also very telling. And if it is this color, there may be some other factors at play. Maybe it doesn't have to do with your water. Maybe something else is going on. So we're going to ask about it. We're also going to ask about your bowel movements, like what is normal for you. And I would think that you would know what's normal for you. So if normal for you is going once a day and it's always been that way, then that's normal for you. If going one time a week or twice a week is normal for you, there's probably a conversation that needs to be had. Is it painful? I mean, you got to look at, most people are going to look and see what's in there. Is it formed? Is it super soft? It can be embarrassing to talk about for a lot of people, but it is very telling. Talk to your doctor about this. We could look at your food. We could look at your medications. We could look at your conditions and tell you like, all right, this is probably what you want to look at. Let's pay more attention to this. But then third, water always comes up because most of us are walking around chronically dehydrated and not knowing it.
Chronically dehydrated. That is technically true.
Chronically dehydrated because a lot of us don't like water. A lot of us will choose a sugar sweetened beverage or coffee over water. And then there's some people that truly just like don't really like water. To drink 6 cups of water isn't something that they feel like they could do. There's other things that you could do. If you like your sugar sweetened beverage, which I would hope is 100% juice, we can cut that with water in a major way, because if you cut it where it's only a fourth a cup of juice and the rest of it's water, that's increasing your water intake, that's decreasing your sugar intake. And you can make it creative. I always tell people about like those little bottles that you can throw fruit into to like soak up some of the essence of the flavor of fruit to help you drink water. Do that. Some people like the little soda streams because they like the little bubbles in it. Do that. But you can also eat foods that are high in water content to help you because it helps with your digestion. It helps improve your skin. It can help with the regularity when we were talking about bowel movements. And it can also like help increase your energy. So foods that are high in water could be like watermelon, very telling, like citrus fruits, pineapples, many of
Oranges.
those tomatoes,
Mhm.
those summer things that we're about to walk into right now are great choices.
Those
And
juicy fruits. That's what those juicy fruits.
they're super juicy. The
Mhm.
cucumbers in a nice salad,
Ooh.
you know, it's
Mhm.
refreshing. And these things are good for you, you know. For
Yeah.
most people, of course, you definitely want to follow up with what's going on with you individually. But generally speaking, those are good things to discuss or increase.
That's really good. I have had an absolute ball with you,
Oh, good. I'm glad.
Danielle. If you can, let us know where we can find you on social media, how we can get in contact with you, and what services you have available.
Yeah. So right now, I haven't been taking very many clients because I've been wrapping up my internship. But starting in July, I'm definitely going to open up my schedule. But you can check me out at my website, www.daniellesmiley.com. You can see what's been going on with me. I have a blog there. I also have a podcast. It's the 40 something and interning podcast.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, your services for that look amazing, I just need to say. I've been
Thank
caught
you.
up in these ads like, wow, this is good stuff.
Thank you.
You can find me on Instagram at D Smiley Consulting is like my business site. Um, and services that I provide, I do one-to-one counseling. I do corporate wellness type wellness seminars. I have a project coming up that I'm
Ooh,
looking to release later on this year, but it's focused on women finding joy in their skin their way. So it's something that I feel is important because we all have options. We don't all walk one path, and that's okay. And I'm here for that. But generally speaking, my passion is working with women from preconception through their fourth trimester because you don't have to be caught on your heels when you're taking on this next chapter in your life, but you
right.
also shouldn't have to lose who you are at the core to have it as well. And so I, it's just the way that I work. I just want everybody happy and striving for what makes them feel whole and happy. And I just want to be there to support it.
Absolutely. So you guys know where to find Danielle, and you guys know before we end any podcast episode, we pray. So God, we love you. We thank you so much for being so amazing. God, I pray right now that those that need this nutrition kick, those that need to find wellness and health in their bodies, God, I pray that this podcast is able to show them and ignite a fire in them to get moving, to get researching, to be able to find the things that they need, find the right nutritionist, find the right help so they can get their health back in order, oh God. God, I pray right now that Danielle, the things that you've placed on the inside of her, God, I pray that you continue to show your favor on her life, oh God. I pray that she is able to complete her program with ease, oh God, and that she is able to continue to impact the lives all around her. We love you, God, and we give your name all the honor and the glory and the praise. Amen.
Amen.
Well, you have just listened to Virtue with Vision, the podcast, and I'll catch you guys next week. You have just listened to the fastest growing faith-based podcast that empowers, inspires, and motivates your walk with Christ. That's Virtue with Vision, the podcast. Go into this week winning in virtue. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on YouTube so you don't miss an episode. Virtue with Vision is available on all major platforms. That's right, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, and Amazon Music. Subscribe so you can check out all of my past episodes. And always remember, you deserve God's best because you are God's best. Have an awesome week.